They were gentlemen. I mean, they weren't assholes.
He wore the hat, walked the walk, and never broke the cowboy code. But behind that cool, gravel-toned silence, Sam Elliott was holding back some serious fire. Today, at 80, the Hollywood legend is done staying quiet. He's naming names. 7 actors he couldn't stand working with. And 1 director who fired back on stage. Who made the list? Let's just say, some of these names will surprise you. This is classic Hollywood. Let's dive in. Number 1, Benedict Cumberbatch, the cowboy in costume. In 2021, Sam Elliott didn't just criticize a film. He dropped a stick of dynamite at the feet of modern Hollywood and didn't bother to wait for it to explode. Appearing on a podcast, the legendary actor let loose on the power of the dog, Jane Campion's Oscar-winning psychological western. But it wasn't just about the film's slow pacing or moody aesthetic. No, Elliott went for the throat. His harshest words were aimed squarely at the film's star, Benedict Cumberbatch. "What the hell does this Brit know about the American West?" Elliott growled. His voice as dry and cracked as the deserts he's spent his career walking through. To most, it was just a sharp critique. To Elliott, it was a matter of honor. He didn't just take issue with Cumberbatch's accent or posture. He wasn't critiquing technique. He was calling out authenticity. Cumberbatch, with his tailored costume and polished diction, was, in Elliott's eyes, not playing a cowboy. He was impersonating one. The way a child might put on a sheriff's badge and call it a day. The performance, however intense or nuanced, rang hollow to a man who'd lived the very grit others tried to imitate. To Sam, the American West isn't something you study. It's something you carry in your bones. A place where every glance, every silence, every mile walked under the sun has a meaning. So when Hollywood handed the soul of that legacy to a classically trained British actor, Elliott saw not a bold casting choice, but a fundamental misunderstanding of what the Western stands for. The backlash came fast. Critics, scholars, even fellow actors called Elliott out, labeling him a gatekeeper of outdated ideals. Some accused him of toxic masculinity. Others called it xenophobia or artistic snobbery. But Elliott didn't apologize. Not even a carefully worded studio-issued backpedal. Why? Because for Sam, this wasn't just about one movie. It was about a philosophy, a way of life he believes Hollywood is slowly erasing. The Western, Sam once said, isn't about hats and horses. It's about silence, solitude, and the quiet cost of survival. In that sense, the power of the dog didn't just miss the mark. It offended something sacred. Cumberbatch, for his part, never fired back publicly. But insiders say the comments stung. He had immersed himself in the role, learning ranch life, staying in character off camera, even mastering horseback work. And yet, to Elliott, no amount of method acting could bridge what he saw as a cultural canyon. Because in his worldview, the West isn't a story to be told. It's a truth you earn. You don't play cowboy. You are or you aren't. And to Sam Elliott, Benedict Cumberbatch was wearing the hat, but not the history. Number 2, Nicolas Cage. All fireworks, no flame. If Benedict Cumberbatch was the cowboy in costume, then Nicolas Cage was, in Sam Elliott's eyes, the cowboy in chaos. To most of the world, Cage is an icon, an actor unafraid to go big, break boundaries, and embrace absurdity. To Sam Elliott, he's everything wrong with modern performance. Their paths crossed on the 2007 supernatural Western Ghost Rider. On screen, they played 2 men bound by fire and fate, but off screen they were miles apart, in style, in philosophy, and in purpose. Sam Elliott was raised on the sacred stillness of old Hollywood. He believes in the power of restraint, in letting a glance do what a monologue can't. To him, acting is a quiet storm, measured, internal, deeply human. Nicolas Cage, by contrast, is a howl in a hurricane. He performs like every scene is a stage. His crescendos are volcanic, his eyes wide with untamed energy. Elliott didn't see risk-taking, he saw noise. "More firework than flame," he reportedly said, a simple phrase that cut deeper than any insult. To Sam, Cage's performances weren't about the story or the character, they were about him, the actor at the center, the spectacle over the substance. The kind of acting, Elliott feared, that turned cinema into a circus. Even while Cage was racking up awards and cult followers, Elliott remained unmoved. Because in his mind, awards don't measure truth. They measure impact, and to him, truth doesn't need to shout. During Ghost Rider, Elliott kept it professional. He was courteous. He hit his marks. He didn't complain. But behind that mustached poker face, he kept his distance. Because for Elliott, real acting is about disappearing into a role, not demanding the spotlight with every twitch and scream. Friends say Sam never named names. He didn't need to. "Some actors hijack the story," he once told a colleague. "They bend it around their ego instead of bending themselves to the role." Few doubted who he meant. It wasn't personal, it was principled. Elliott wasn't angry at Cage for being eccentric. He was angry at what Cage represented. A Hollywood obsessed with shock, speed, and volume over craft, patience, and soul. Because for Sam Elliott, the greatest performances are the quiet ones. The kind that stay with you not because they demanded attention, but because they earned it. And to him, Nicolas Cage was a bright, burning spectacle. But not a fire worth sitting around. Number 3. Kevin Costner, the cowboy in makeup. To most of America, Kevin Costner is the face of the modern Western. To Sam Elliott, he's a model in cowboy boots. This one cuts deep, because unlike the theatrical fire of Nicolas Cage or the art house distance of Cumberbatch, Costner came close to something Elliott holds sacred, the Western legacy. But in Sam's eyes, he still missed the mark. Costner played legends, Wyatt Earp, Hatfields and McCoys, and most famously John Dutton in Yellowstone. He wore the clothes, delivered the gravel, rode the horse. But for Elliott, something never rang true. "He plays a rancher like it's dress up," Sam allegedly told a friend. "Like he's cosplaying something he doesn't understand." That wasn't a cheap insult. It was a declaration. To Sam Elliott, the West isn't a character. It's a code. Where Elliott came from calloused hands, silence at sunrise, and hard-earned wisdom baked in under a wide sky. Costner, in his view, brought clean boots, polished scripts, and a Hollywood veneer. Even Yellowstone, one of the biggest hits in modern television, left Sam unimpressed. "Soap opera with a cowboy hat," he supposedly called it. Millions were tuning in. Critics praised it, awards followed. But Elliott? He turned down a cameo role, an open invitation to step into the Dutton universe. And he didn't even think twice. Because accepting that part would have meant endorsing a version of the West he didn't believe in. To Sam Elliott, Yellowstone wasn't honoring the Western tradition. It was selling it, turning it into content, not character. He wasn't bitter, he was disappointed. Elliott sees the Western not as a genre, but a philosophy, rooted in quiet resilience, hard land, and harder men. It's not just about the look, it's about living the weight of that life. And while Costner's performances were brooding and bold, Elliott saw through the cinematic polish. To him, it was Hollywood cosplay, powerful on the surface, hollow underneath. The tension between them never erupted into headlines. No tabloid drama, no red carpet snubs. "They never yelled," said one producer, but the chill between them could freeze a desert. For Elliott, it was never personal. It was principle. Costner represented a shift, the New West, curated, beautiful, mass-marketed. Elliott, he's the last sentinel of the Old West. Grit over glamour, silence over spectacle, truth over television. Number 4. Jared Leto, the carnival actor. If there's one thing that truly gets under Sam Elliott's weathered skin, it's not arrogance. not in the loud, brash, traditional sense. It's something worse. Pretension. Not the kind that screams, "Look at me," but the kind that whispers, "This is art," while dancing under a spotlight. And to Sam Elliott, no one in modern Hollywood better embodies that brand of performance than Jared Leto. They've never shared the screen, but they almost did. At one point, Elliott was loosely attached to a film. A moody indie western, serious script, gritty promise. Then Leto was cast as the lead, and just like that, Sam quietly walked away. No statement, no public disagreement. Just silence. That was the statement. To Sam Elliott, acting is sacred ground. It's not a performance art piece. It's not a viral headline. It's not a stunt. It's quiet, internal, hard-fought truth. Jared Leto? To Sam, he's the opposite of that. When stories surfaced of Leto sending rats to co-stars on Suicide Squad or staying in character off-camera for months, Elliott reportedly shook his head and muttered, "He's acting like acting is a carnival." In Elliott's world, that's not just criticism. That's condemnation. Because for Sam, the best actors disappear into a role. They don't bring the role into their dressing room. They don't terrorize castmates for the sake of commitment. They don't make it about them. Jared Leto's Oscar win for Dallas Buyers Club didn't move him. His method antics didn't impress him. And his growing cult-like fan base? To Sam Elliott, it's a symptom of a larger Hollywood sickness. Performance over presence. Shock over substance. Ego over honesty. "You don't need to suffer to tell the truth," Elliott once said. "You just have to understand it." That's where Leto, in his eyes, failed completely. To Sam, method acting gone wild isn't commitment. It's camouflage. It hides lack of connection with layers of showmanship. It's not about the character. It's about getting noticed. And Sam Elliott has zero interest in being noticed. He's spent a career doing the work, speaking when necessary, and letting his presence say the rest. In a world where young actors are celebrated for pushing boundaries, Sam Elliott remains rooted in the belief that boundaries are what give acting its meaning. Leto is a symbol of how far the craft has drifted from its roots. Where once there was stillness and weight, now there's chaos and flash. So no, they've never worked together. And in Sam's view, they never will. Number 5. Ashton Kutcher, the YouTube actor. Sam Elliott has never needed to raise his voice to make a statement. A pause, a glance, a slow inhale. That's all it takes. Because in his world, real acting doesn't scream. It simmers. So when Elliott was cast alongside Ashton Kutcher in Netflix's The Ranch, fans were curious. A sitcom star turned investor, paired with a living legend of the American West? It wasn't a clash of egos, it was a collision of generations. On paper, the contrast was part of the show's appeal. Kutcher brought the lightness, the humor, the casual charm. Elliott brought the gravity, the kind of presence that makes a room go silent the second he walks in. But behind the scenes, there was tension. Not yelling, not drama, just a quiet, undeniable disconnect. Elliott showed up every day with the same purpose he's brought to every role since the 1960s. Tell the truth. Serve the story. Leave your ego at the door. Kutcher, to his credit, was respectful. He often praised Elliott in interviews, called him a mentor, a legend. He meant it. But Sam wasn't sold. "He's a decent guy," Elliott reportedly told a crew member, "but no real actor." To Sam, that wasn't an insult. It was an observation. Kutcher, in his view, was a product of a new kind of Hollywood, one where charisma outweighs craft, where viral appeal replaces depth, where success comes not from the weight of the work, but from how many people click on it. Elliott didn't see darkness behind the eyes. He didn't feel the stillness, the scars, the history that turns a performance into a presence. To him, Kutcher's acting felt like someone doing an impression of a role, not living it. "He's acting like a guy who saw acting on YouTube," Elliott reportedly said once in private. That wasn't cruelty, that was heartbreak. Because for Sam, Acting is not a pose. It's not a playlist. It's earned. Through rejection, through failure, through humility. Kutcher had soared to fame with that 70s show, rom-coms, tech ventures, and tabloid headlines. Sam Elliott had clawed his way up through decades of bit parts, character roles, and gravel-throated silences that hit harder than most actors' monologues. They both made it to the same set. But to Sam, they'd walked very different roads, and the difference showed in every scene. Still, Elliott remained professional. No tantrums, no refusals to work. Because Sam doesn't make it personal, he makes it principled. He didn't mock Kutcher in interviews, he didn't grandstand, he just kept his head down, delivered his lines, and let the work speak. Because while Kutcher might play the cowboy, Elliott still is one. Number 6. Jane Campion. The director who clapped back. Some Hollywood feuds simmer in silence. This one exploded on stage. When Sam Elliott blasted The Power of the Dog in 2021, he didn't just criticize a movie. He ignited a firestorm that forced the industry to pick sides. At the heart of that storm stood Jane Campion, the Oscar-winning director who refused to let Sam's growl go unanswered. Elliott, in an unusually candid podcast appearance, tore into Campion's film. He didn't hold back. He called it pretentious, misguided, and above all, inauthentic. His sharpest critique? That a filmmaker from New Zealand had no business telling a story about the American West. "What does this woman from down there know about cowboys?" he questioned. He dismissed her vision as stylized outsider fantasy, a glossy, misunderstood take on a rugged reality she'd never lived. To Campion, it wasn't just criticism, it was condescension. And she wasn't about to stay quiet. The clapback heard around Hollywood fast forward to 2022, on stage at the Directors Guild of America Awards. Campion took the mic and took aim. "He's not a cowboy," she said flatly. "He's an actor." The room went quiet. It was surgical, director, and very public. That line wasn't just a burn, it was a reclamation of authority. Her way of saying, you don't get to own this genre anymore, you don't get to police who tells these stories. She saw Elliott's comments not as artistic critique, but as a form of gatekeeping. A defense of the old guard, unwilling to accept that the Western genre had evolved. To Campion, the film wasn't about horses and hats. It was about fragile masculinity, repressed emotion, and the shadows beneath stoic men. Themes that the classic Western rarely explored, and that a woman director had every right to dissect. Tradition versus transformation. The feud revealed something bigger than either of them. This wasn't just Elliott versus Campion. This was old Hollywood versus New Hollywood. The stoic cowboy versus the complex anti-hero. The traditional myth versus the modern truth. Elliott stood his ground. He issued no apology, no clarification. Just silence, and a firm belief that Campion's film violated something sacred. Campion. She doubled down too. She saw herself not as a violator, but a revolutionary. And she wasn't asking permission. A philosophical divide. This wasn't personal, it was philosophical. Sam Elliott believes that the Western should be told by those who've walked its dust, who understand its weight, its stillness, its code. Jane Campion believes that stories, especially those rooted in repression and identity, shouldn't be confined by borders or bloodlines, that the genre belongs to everyone brave enough to challenge it. Two artists, two visions, and a silence between them that speaks volumes. Number 7. Jeff Bridges. The brother who drifted. Not all fallouts in Hollywood come with fireworks. Some end with a handshake and a silence that never lifts. That's what happened between Sam Elliott and Jeff Bridges, two icons who once seemed like twin sons of the same dusty Western myth. Their chemistry in The Big Lebowski was unforgettable. Bridges as the dude, loose, lazy, effortlessly iconic. Elliott as the stranger, a voice of gravel, gravitas, and quiet wisdom. Their scenes were small, but their bond? It felt like real kinship, cut from the same rugged cloth. But somewhere along the trail, that bond faded. A subtle drift. It started quietly. No argument, no public rift, just distance. Sources close to Elliott say it began after Bridges won his Oscar for Crazy Heart in 2010. The role was raw, soulful, and brilliantly executed. Elliott never denied the talent, but something changed in Jeff afterward. He didn't change overnight, one insider said, but you could feel it. He started carrying himself differently. To Sam Elliott, the change wasn't about ego, it was about curation. Jeff Bridges, the laid-back, sandpaper-voiced journeyman, was suddenly showing up in polished interviews, dressing more like a star than a stranger, moving in elite circles. For Elliott, who's built his life on consistency, humility, and staying grounded, that shift felt like a slow betrayal. Not of friendship, but of identity. Some folks change, Sam once said in an interview. Others just show who they always were. He didn't name Jeff. He didn't have to. The message was clear. He'd lost a brother to Hollywood. Not a fight, a funeral. There was no yelling, no passive-aggressive quotes in the press, but the signs were there. No more joint appearances, no red carpet photos, no supportive interviews or nostalgic nods. Just absence. A silence that only means something when it follows something real. And for Sam Elliott, that kind of silence cuts deepest. Because this wasn't about showmanship or stardom, it was about losing someone he thought would always walk beside him. Quietly, without applause, down the long road of authenticity. For a man like Sam, who still believes in loyalty as sacred, this wasn't a feud. It was a funeral for a friendship that once felt unshakable. So what do all these names have in common? It's not just that Sam Elliott clashed with them. It's that each one, in his eyes, broke the code. The cowboy code. It's not written in scripts. It's not something you study in acting school. It's something you carry. In your silence, in your grit. In the way you respect the land, the role, and the truth behind both. To some, Sam Elliott is stubborn, stuck in a fading version of Hollywood. To others, he's the last guardian of what it once stood for. Agree with him or not, one thing's undeniable. He doesn't fake it. He doesn't flatter. And he doesn't stay quiet when something violates the soul of the stories he's spent a lifetime telling. So what do you think? Do you side with Elliott's old-school values? Or do you believe Hollywood has moved on for the better? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from real fans of the craft. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video. Subscribe to Classic Hollywood for more untold truths, legendary feuds, and deep dives into the icons who shaped cinema. Because here, the story doesn't end when the credits roll. We'll see you in the next one. Stay classic.